Alright, welcome back everybody. So today what we're going to be doing is our annual chainsaw and logging gear maintenance video. In this video we're going to be servicing our saws for our winter service. We're going to be servicing all of our tools. So we're going to go through basically everything in this video. So let's start off with the power saws today, and then tomorrow we will start off with some of the gear and stuff like that, like my felling jack and my axe and some other tools. So let's get into it. So before we actually get into this, let me first show you the three saws that I own, that I use on a daily basis, both at work and also here at the ranch for just personal use. So let's begin with my main one, which I use most of the time, and that would be my MS 400, 400C, 400CR, whatever you want to call this saw. This is my main daily driver, and this is what I run most of the time. This is a 20-inch bar on it. I have a full wrap handle on it because I really like the full wrap handles. It gives me a much better reach to be able to saw with this clutch side up or full side up, and it's very nice for special tree felling, like garden tree felling and stuff like that, where you need we're cutting big trees where you need to hit it from both sides, and there's just a bunch of different reasons why a full wrap handle like this is really good. But this is the thing which I use most of the time, and I love it. The MS271. This is a great saw. Now, I have done some modifications since the last time you saw this saw. Now, what I've done to this is I've converted it from normal 0.325 pitch to 3/8, just because I have 3/8 files, because this saw runs 3/8 stock, and I don't want to be switching files all the time. So now I can file this saw and this saw with the same file, and plus I just like 3/8 more. I don't know, it's better if you hit a rock or something, it doesn't dole up as many teeth as 0.325 would do. Then I also kind of modded the front on this, or the exhaust. I made a better exhaust system to it. It has a new clutch cover and just a bunch of different things I did to this saw to make it a bit better and a bit less homeownery, which I like. This is the only non-steel chainsaw that I use. This is a Husqvarna T540 XP. I really love this saw. I'm not a huge Husqvarna fan. I've always been a Stihl fan, but I've always loved these Husqvarna, like these smaller Husqvarna saws. I absolutely love this thing. It's light, but it has lots of power behind it, and it really gets the job done in the tree. And yes, if you didn't know, I do climbing these days, so yeah, that's what this saw is. Now let's begin with my main saw, the 400C, and let's give this its annual service. I got this DeWalt little tool bag where I keep all of my spare parts and tools and whatnot. Like I have a spare drive sprocket in here. I got other spare parts. I might as well go through some of this stuff. In here, what I got, it's taken a bit of water damage, but I have a spare air filter. In here, if I remember how to open this, I have a spare fuel filter and spark plug, a tool to adjust the carburetor, and then one of these tools to tighten up any loose nuts or screws on the saw. It's nice to keep a bunch of spare parts with you, just in case something breaks on the saw. You can easily do a field repair. But here is the tool that we need. And all scrunch tools are not built the same, so make sure you get a proper one. A factory Stihl one is very nice. I don't really know much about the Husqvarna ones, but I have one which I keep on my climbing harness, and it's okay. Taking off the side cover. I think this is the first time you're seeing the inner guts of this saw. If I recall correctly, we did this on the 271 last time when we did this sort of service video. So let's remove the bar. And yes, it would be much easier for me to remove this with loosening the chain, but I'm too lazy to do that, so we're just gonna take it off like that. So what we want to begin with is basically blow all this stuff out. You see all this gunk all around here and all around the side cover. We want to get some compressed air or something and blow this out. So to clean chains, it is not the world's easiest feat, I would say. Or, well, I guess it's easy, but it's not, let's say that it's not fun. So here's the chain that I've been running throughout the past few months. And basically how you clean chains is you put them into some sort of bowl, which you don't mind getting dirty, obviously. And actually, I'm probably gonna, well, here's my box of chains. Here's everything that I has as backups. Should these be cleaned? I'm pretty sure these are fine. These got cleaned a few months back. So we'll just throw that chain in there for now. It's pretty dirty. It's been used quite a bit. And what you do is you introduce a little bit of gasoline into there. Now, obviously, this goes without saying that this is very dangerous and should not be done within a shop. And don't worry, I'm going to put this outside to soak up. And basically what you want this to soak up overnight, or at the very least for a few hours. Now moving on to the actual power head and the dust cover itself. So we got it fairly clean with the carburetor cleaner, well, not the carburetor cleaner, but with just spraying it out with the compressed air. But now we're gonna use some carburetor cleaner on it. Now, yes, you can clean out sauce with gasoline. I don't do that. I don't like to play around with gasoline. Dangerous and stupid. And carburetor cleaner, or whatever this is, it does the job as well, and it's less dangerous. Sure, it's more expensive, but it is what it is. I'd rather stay safe than do something stupid. I really want to get it into all those nooks and crannies and really just rinse out and clean the saw. Normally, like if it's still the season, I won't go through all this. What I'll do is basically just grab my compressed air, quickly go through this the sprocket and just clean it quickly with the compressed air, then clean out the air filter, sharpen the chain, and then ready to go. But now, since it's the end of the season, I like to do one proper service every season, so that's what I'm doing right now here, if you're wondering. Dirty ass fucking sprocket cover. Gross. Now moving back to the saw, now let's look underneath the housing. Alright, and underneath here, by the way, I might want to add that I choked the saw before opening up this, so the carburetor isn't exposed. So there's two things that you want to check in here. Well, first of all, you want to clean out all this bung. Secondly, you want to check your air filter, that it's clean. Obviously it's not, so we'll have to clean that. But one thing which we want to check now is the spark plug. Is it okay? So let's pull out the spark plug and check. There we are. Pull that off. And now I believe this should fit your normal. No, it does not. They changed the spark plugs recently to, I believe, a smaller size. So let's see if we can find a key that fits that. Okay, it's pretty small, so I believe it might be 13. Let's see. It's bigger than 13. Let's see about 16 here. And we're right on the money. All right, so remember, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So this way, it should loosen up. Yes, it shall. Pull that out. You want to make sure that your spark plug looks all clean and nice. It has dirt on it. That is not good. Now, me personally, I am going to dry clean this with a clean towel and not something that's wet, because I don't want any moisture into my engine. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's some corrosion right there, which I cannot get off. Is that rust? That could be rust. I I don't know about this one. I don't really like how that's looking. I might actually switch out the spark plug and have this as an extra. It should still work, I believe, but yeah, I do think I'm gonna switch out the spark plug to a new one. I have a new spark plug here, so let's pull that out. If I can, which way does this open? This way. Which should be the same. Whoa. Okay, this spark plug is way too big. I don't know what happened here. That's a good thing I noticed that. Look at that. Jesus Christ. Well, lesson learned with that, I guess. They don't share exactly the same parts, the 362 and the 400. Now let's put this thing back in here. Normally, you should do a test that do you have a spark, but I know that I have one, so I don't mind, or I'm not gonna start doing all that. Let me tighten that up. You want it snug, but not too hard, because of once you go to remove it, you don't want to strip the threads, I guess. Put the hat back on. Push that back in there. Perfect. All right, now for the air filter. All right, there we go. That's pretty good. All right, so now that when the saw is mostly cleaned out, now let's move on to our bars. So for my primary saw, I run two different bars. The one that I run the most is my 20-inch lightweight steel bar. I absolutely love this thing, and you can tell this thing has been, yeah, it's been put through the ringer quite a bit. Look at that. So this bar is definitely starting to be towards the end of its lifespan. This front sprocket, or whatever this is called, the front drive sprocket, is really loose, and when I put a bar into here, or not a bar but a chain into here, it moves around a lot, and those are good indications that your bar is starting to wear out. But I think it should be fine still for maybe another season or half a season or so. So I'm still gonna service this and try to get as much life out of it as possible. But this is my main bar, the 20-inch. But if I need to get into big trees, I do have a 32-inch bar right here, which I run whenever I need to cut big stuff. And yeah, as you can see, this bar has been used much less than my big bar, or my main bar. And that's basically for the fact of, I don't really like this bar, honestly. I know a lot of the Americans and everybody else, they use these big bars, but out here, it's very rare for me to have to use this big of a bar. So I only run it whenever I have to, but for most occasions, I run my shorter 20-inch bar. So yeah, let's clean out both of these, put this bar back on, sharpen the chain, and then we should be good to go with that saw. All right. Let's get all. I'm gonna start off by cleaning out this area. This always gathers a bunch of dirt and grime and shit. So start off by trying to get most of that stuff out of there. See these little holes right here? I don't think you can see them, but if you do, those are your oiling holes. So make sure that those are free of any debris or dirt, and yeah, that they're good to go, because of those oil your chain, and obviously if those are clogged, no oil is going to get into your bar, and yeah, then you'll wear out your bar. So make sure that that's all clean and good to go. And then another thing which people always overlook are these grooves. Make sure, grab some sort of tool, a little like screwdriver or whatever works well, and clean out these grooves. These always gather a bunch of shit in there, and you want all of that crap out of there. Yeah, look at that. Look at the amount of garbage. Can you even see that? Holy crap, look. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You really want to get into those grooves and clean them out, because you do not want all that stuff in there. Because that's the silent killer of, well, at least your bar anyway. Because all this stuff is clogging up both the oil and the chain of spinning around, and it's going to slowly start wearing out your bar. So make sure to get all that crap out of there. Yeah, again, completely fucking dirty. Gross. Another thing which most people overlook is that your saw is gonna get this sort of mushrooming effect. You see that right there? It's gonna get kind of that mushrooming effect when the saw is under stress and the chain is rubbing against the bar. You want to make sure you get rid of all that because that's also going to wear out your bar prematurely. So let's grab my flat file from here and get rid of all that. Doesn't really matter what way you do it, just as long as you get all that crap out of there. Make sure you do the top as well, because that mushrooming effect can go over to the top, and or that mushrooming stuff, instead of being filed away, can bend upwards. So you want to make sure that you check the top as well to make sure they didn't bend upwards, and file it down from there as well. All right, one last thing. Let's talk about chainsaw sharpening. So it's a skill, right? It's not something that you're gonna pick up straight away. It is definitely a skill, but basically the basic twist on it is you lay your file onto your tooth. You want it to go with the tooth. So you see how that's going that way? You want your file to go that way also. You don't want to overfile it like this. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. You want it with the tooth in the right angle and the right elevation. And then once you have it lined up, you want to give it a firm, long stroke. Like that. And then if you give this 3 strokes, you want to give the next one 3 strokes as well, and so on and so forth. And that's how you're going to get it evenly sharpened. Now, why is that important? Well, if this is unevenly sharpened, you're going to start getting crooked cuts. And oh yeah, I almost failed to mention, and that is your depth gauges. When should you sharpen or lower your depth gauges? Well, it's pretty simple to check. Basically what you want to do is, if I can grab my saw from here, basically what you want to do is you want to grab your saw, and then you want to put your flat file on top of there and see if there's space in between your flat file, or if there's space in between the top of the tooth and the depth gauge. And if there's no space, or that the file is riding on top of the depth gauges, then you want to file them down. But if there's still a nice bit of space between the depth gauges and the tooth, then you're good, basically. Well, that's basically all the work that you have to do on one saw. So in between today and tomorrow, I'm gonna do these 2 saws off camera. And then tomorrow, we're gonna get into all the rest of the gear and all the servicing that needs to be done on them. So see you tomorrow. All right, so it's day 2, and I just got the saws, the final 2 saws, all maintained. There wasn't a whole lot of maintenance to be done to those. They haven't been ran as much as the big saw. Now, there's one more thing which we should talk about the saws, which is storing it with fuel or no fuel. Well, my personal opinion is if you're gonna store it over winter, you should store it without fuel. So dump the fuel out and run it dry, and basically dry up the carburetor and the engine and everything like that. Now, if that's not something which you want to do for whatever reason, then first, number 1, non-ethanol fuel. If you can't get non-ethanol fuel, get fuel with the least amount of ethanol possible. What the ethanol does is, if you leave it sitting over time inside of the carburetor, that's going to gunk up the little channels in your carburetor, and it's going to destroy your carburetor. And basically the only way to fix it is to rebuild the carburetor every year. So make sure, if you're gonna store it with fuel in it, make sure that it's non-ethanol fuel. Or if you can't get non-ethanol fuel again, which over here in Finland you can't really get that, then store it with fuel with the least amount of ethanol in it. All right, so today what we're gonna be doing is 2 things. We're going to be maintaining our axis, and we're going to be maintaining our felling equipment, meaning wedges. And if you have a felling jack, then I'll show you a few things which you might want to think about on your felling jack. So let's start off with the axe. You can see what I do with my axe every year. And yeah, then we'll move on to our felling equipment. All right. So this is the axe that I use on a daily basis at work for pounding wedges and doing whatever else I do with an axe. This is my Whole Force Brooks or I don't think it's Brooks. Is it Brooks? No, just Whole Forest large forest axe. I really like this axe. Now, why do I like it so much? Well, it has a heavy head and a long handle, which gives me a lot of striking power to strike wedges, which is nice, which is the main purpose of this thing. And it has a very nice flat butt on it, which makes it optimal for pounding wedges. Now, obviously this is hardened steel, so you should probably not be pounding in metal wedges, but I use the plastic wedges, so it's fine. And yeah, this is the axe that I use nowadays. Now obviously I'm not going to clamp it into my clamp here just without no protection, because these have these very shitty jaws on it, and that's going to damage your axe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tissue and put it in between here, so when we're actually servicing it, it won't damage the axe head. Now I'm going to start off by giving it just a general sharpening with a flat file. We'll come in with a stone later, but I want to start off by just giving it a general sharpening with a flat file to just get the edge back on there. Normally, if you're just during the season just working and your axe becomes dull, you can pretty much sharpen it and get it to a usable point with just using the flat file for your chainsaw. So that's what I'm going to do here. And no, I don't have any special tricks to make my filing easier here. I'm just going by what feels right. So all you true axe enthusiasts out there are probably screaming at me that I'm doing something wrong, but hey, it is what it is. I'll just flip it around. Should be totally usable if you're during the season just realize that your axe got unsharp and you want to sharpen it. Just doing that with your flat file is going to give you a serviceable edge. Now, what you will notice at this point is you test your edge on one side and you tell that it's pretty sharp, but then you test the other side and the other side doesn't feel as sharp. That's because you kind of have a, I don't remember what it's called. I think they call it a wire. So basically when you sharpen it, it kind of mushrooms that way. Some of the material mushrooms that way. And yeah, that's why it feels sharp from one side, but not sharp from the other. So we need to cut that line or that webbing. And how you do that is basically come in with your file and just do this. Twice is efficient, and then you should have a sharp edge on both sides. Now for the part that actually makes this sharp, we'll need a stone and we'll need some oiling material here. Now I usually want to use some proper oils to do this, but I don't have that, so we're doing it like this. This is the redneck way of doing this. Jesus Christ, that thing is sharp. That's actually kind of spooky how sharp that thing is. God damn, that point looks nice though. Yeah, well, I don't know if that's the complete correct way of doing this. I'm sure that there is probably a better way, but yeah, that's what I usually do, and well, I can get it pretty sharp, so. All right, so moving on to the wedges that I use. So these are the 3 wedges that I use. I use 2 8-inch wedges, and I use 1 10-inch wedge, which, as you can see, all these have been pretty used, and they have all taken their fair share of damage, either from the saw or just wear and tear. This one is actually in a relatively good state, but these 2 are pretty bad. So let's get to it. Let's get these 2 guys all ready to go and sharpened, and make sure that they're ready. So let's start off with the big wedge. Yes, this has taken probably the most amount of damage. I'm coming in here with sandpaper and basically sanding this down to a point. You can do this with a rasp or something, but I don't have a rasp, so I'm doing it with sandpaper. Okay. Alright, I think that's starting to be in a much better point there. It's not perfect, but it'll get the job done. Alright, and one more thing with the wedges. You see this mushrooming right here? That's really bad. And why is that bad? Well, that's whenever you want to stack wedges. You see that? You see that gap right there? That's not ideal. That makes it hard to stack wedges. Now, why would you want to stack wedges? Well, obviously it's to get more lift out of the one wedge. Now, why does this happen? You might be wondering. Well, it's because whenever you strike your wedge, these plastic wedges, you kind of compress it and some of the material moves over here and kind of mushrooms it. So you don't want to have that mushrooming effect. So let's remove that excess material here. And the best way to do this is just with a knife. Now make sure if you're running a dull knife to not have your fingers in front of the blade. That's probably a good life lesson, I do think. Now this would also be easier with a rasp, but again, like I said, I don't have a rasp. Now the best way to check if that's good enough is to put your wedge on top and see if there's no. I was gonna say that there's still a gap there, but no, I think it's pretty flush. So that's pretty good. Or this side is pretty good now. Yeah, that's actually pretty flush. It looked worse from my angle, but it was pretty good. Moving on to a tool which most of you Americans may not have the faintest idea of what this is. This is, hold on, let me move my chair out of the way. This right here is a Stolpen filling jack. This is something that we use out here in Europe whenever we're cutting trees in dangerous locations to basically push over the tree. Now this thing is really heavy, really cumbersome, but for pushing over trees, this is a go-to item. This is almost, I would say this is a must-have if you're doing garden tree felling, a felling jack like this. So basically how it works is you grab your felling jack, you put the jaws up here up against the tree, and then you push it into the tree like this until it's firm against the bark of the tree. Then you make your cuts, and then once you have done your cuts, you might want to put in a wedge or two. But then basically what you need to do is pump that, and that's gonna drop the tree. Now, what do we want to do to this to service it basically? Well, there's not a lot that I'm willing to do. I'm not willing to remove all this and service the interior of this because this is a very delicate item. Or not delicate, but there's just a lot going on within this. So I don't have the capabilities of, you know, taking apart this and putting it back together. But what I can do is give it a general cleaning. And one thing which I was told was you should oil this tube right here. So that's what we're gonna do. And that's basically all that there's to it with our felling equipment and our axe.